Hello and welcome once again to A River Between Chaos and Zen, the poetry podcast from Creative Actors Lab. My name is Max. I wanted to share something with you today by the author Marcel Proust. According to Wikipedia, Valentin Louis Joseph Eugene Marcel Proust was born in 1871, died in 1922, French novelist, literary critic, essayist, best known, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this in French, called A Remembrance of Things Past or In Search of Lost Time. It was published in 7 volumes between 1913 and 1927, and he's considered to be one of the most influential writers of the 20th century. But what I wanted to share about him, there was a thing, he did not invent what I'm going to tell you here, but there's a thing called the Proust Questionnaire. It was basically, it's a list of questions that back then that would just get passed around. It was sort of like I want to say like a conversation starter or an icebreaker, but some of this stuff actually gets really into it here. And I became aware of this actually as my wife Kelley and I were in the process of training actors, and particularly we did a lot of work with improvisation. Now there is an actor's exercise called hot seat, and it's basically, it's when an actor is still within the process of building the character and figuring out what their motivations and their triggers and all that stuff and all the other good stuff that actors do when they're trying to, put together a character and tell a good story. But the way hot seat goes is, and it's not the most comfortable thing sometimes for an actor, but then again, comfort zones and acting usually don't work too well together, but I digress. Basically, the way it goes is that you get a chair, you sit up on the stage all by your little lonesome self, and then everybody else, whether it's an acting class or if you're in rehearsals for a play or something, everybody else sits in the audience and you sit up on stage as your character. And everybody else gets to ask you whatever the bloody hell they want, and you have to answer as your character. If you're doing a dialect or or a character voice, you have to answer in that, and whatever the character's physical mannerisms may be, if they're different from your own, you have to answer this in character, and it's spontaneous and it's right off the bat. And of course, you get people, asking, what's your favorite sexual position, and all this stupid stuff. But I came across, I forget where I came across, but just in the process of trying to find new ways to do the hot seat exercise, I came across this thing called Proust's Questionnaire, and he did not originate this, but there were like lists like this that were kind of circulating within society, and you sit down over tea or whatever and you just start asking one another questions, and it goes like this. It says the questions are this: what do you consider your greatest achievement? For me, it's being a parent. What is your idea of perfect happiness? I once heard someone say perfect happiness is my daughter's saying, good morning, Daddy, and bringing me coffee. I like that. What is your current state of mind? What is your favorite occupation? What is your most treasured possession? I would have trouble with that one. What is your favorite journey? One that I've made with my family, whatever that may be. What is your most marked characteristic? I kind of feel like if I were to answer that, other people would have to answer it for me. There are some things that I read this and I go, is that really any of my business what people think of me in this way? But they go on to say, when and where were you the happiest? What do you most dislike? What is your greatest fear? For myself, that would be becoming handicapped, to physically be unable to carry on. That would that really scares the shit out of me. What is your greatest extravagance? It used to be wine. It's not anymore. Now it's probably coffee and ice cream. Which living person do you most despise? What is your greatest regret? Which talent would you most like to have? For me personally, playing a musical instrument. I can use my voice. I can't play an instrument at all. I've never had the patience to sit down and do that, and I really wish I could play something. Where would you like to live? What do you regard as the lowest depth of misery? I can actually remember being 31 years old, getting chicken pox at 31 years old that got into my mouth, down my throat, and into my lungs, and I wound up in the emergency room on a respirator, and then hearing that my father had just undergone medical malpractice, and I was laying in a hospital bed hooked up to IVs and oxygen tubes. That was about as bad as it's ever gotten. What quality do you like most in a man, and what quality do you like most in a woman? Honestly, for me, it has to come down to, do you show up when you say you're going to show up and do what you're supposed to do? Do you have, can you treat other people the way you would wish to be treated? When you fuck up, do you take responsibility, apologize if you need to, and learn from it? That, to me, man, woman, whatever, that's it for me. What is the trait you most deplore in yourself? Probably procrastination, although I've gotten a lot better as I've gotten older. But to be perfectly honest, I can have a bit of an addictive personality, and I've had to deal with that. I've been very, very fortunate to have a lot of guardian angels and good people around me. But, as I say right now, my drugs of choice are coffee and ice cream, kids. What do you value most in your friends? Again, what qualities do you find most important in a man or a woman? Again, just responsibility, compassion, treat people the way you'd want to be treated. You make a mistake, fess up, fix it, learn from it, stuff like that. What is your favorite hero of fiction? Okay, Batman. Ever since I was a little kid, I grew up in the 1960s. I remember seeing Batman. Although, let me tell you what, if you were a person of my age group and you grew up in this country, watching television as I did in the 1960s, if you remember the Green Hornet, truthfully, I love Batman. The Green Hornet was cool. The Green Hornet was fun. Kato. Bruce Lee. Bruce fucking Lee. When I was a kid, I really, really looked up to Bruce Lee. And Kato was just the coolest thing. Again, Kato was why I got into martial arts in the first place. And I just came to, just after being a kid in the 1970s and martial arts movies, and Bruce Lee was that huge, and grew up on Bruce Lee, and then just coming to in later life, just as I studied different kinds of martial arts, he would always come back to Bruce Lee and just his philosophy and his way of things. And I always really, a lot of that really, really spoke to me in a very special way. So, Cato. Which living person do you most admire? If I'm to be truthful, and I'm not saying this, my wife. Just because I've known her as long as I've known her, been with this person longer than anyone. We've seen each other at our heights and our depths, and going sideways. And she has always, no matter what has happened, she's the definition of a class act, and she's the definition of kind. And I really could not see myself being with anybody else. Certainly not when you take into account all of the hoo-ha and crap and nonsense and bullshit that life has thrown at us over the years, and we always survive. And one thing I'll say about us, anytime we've ever argued, it has never been petty. Everything's always been important. So, my wife. What do you consider the most overrated virtue? Oh, God. I honestly don't have an answer for that. I really don't know. Another one, on what occasions do you lie? Oh, man, that's a tough one. Back in my youth, when I was taking a lot of drugs, I would lie about damn near everything, whether I needed to or not. And then as I got clean, got out of all that stuff, well, luckily, but on what occasions do you lie? I really try not to. I really, sometimes telling the truth in the moment is damn difficult, but, having to carry on and live out a lie is just, it's exhausting, and I'd rather put my energy elsewhere. That's a tough one. I think maybe if I don't know if it's a lie necessarily, but if I see somebody who's really, really trying to do something and they're really not getting it and they're really getting frustrated about things, I won't sit here and say, you're doing a fantastic job, when they're not, but I will try to temper my words as best as possible and not come out with, that's just not very good. I try to be kind. Which words or phrases do you most overuse? Probably dude. What phrase? I probably curse. I probably say fuck a lot. Probably say fuck. I probably say bullshit. Horseshit is another one. But yeah, probably fuck, and varying just varying expressions of the 7 words you can never say on television. If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be? Probably for the amount of times in all honesty, the amount of times that I've struggled with anxiety and depression, I have managed in my old age to regulate it and actually use this stuff in productive ways. But I really wish I could have gotten some assistance with anxiety and depression in much earlier times in my life. What are your favorite names? Amber and Danielle. How would you like to die? Isn't that one for you? Isn't that depressing? I think I probably the best answer I have for that is listening to someone recently who had really gone through some really, really bad health problems and was seriously questioning whether they're going to be walking around in the next 6 months. But basically they asked themselves a question of, if I died right now, and I look back on my life as it is, and my life in the past, and if I were to die right now, am I okay with this? And if I were to answer the question very honestly, right now, no, I would not be okay with it, because I've still got so much I want to do. I've still got so much life I want to live. But how would I like to die? I would like to be able to sit there and go, okay, this is it. I don't have any unfinished business. That's how I'd like to die. If you were to die and come back as a person or thing, what do you think it would be? I don't know. Probably a cat. We've had cats our entire lives, and probably a cat, but I think the best answer I ever heard about this one, I would like to come back as a dust mote in an antique bookshop. I love that. That's a good one. And finally, what is your motto? Okay. Some of this I don't have answers for. Some of this, but I do have an answer for that. There is a prayer in yoga, and I love this very dearly, and it's a good way to close out the episode here. It's may the long time sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. Thank you for listening, everybody. Until next time.